All right, thank you.
Just trying to clarify your position, Mr. Volz. You're telling me the project's complete.
Correct.
So
Regardless of
why
any,
do you care if there's a red tag?
because what does the red tag cover? We have a property that is 47.5 acres with a red tag on the property, and I'm asking what the red tag covers. And if it's limited specifically to construction that was completed, I'm fine. We can go away. Everything is okay. But there's a red tag on the property that asks for a procedural item to be done that does not comply with state statute. Because then, once again, I'm going to go back to the fact the pond is complete. Regardless of what Ms. Poland's position is or anybody else here, the pond basin is complete.
Okay. So if the pond basin is complete, you don't care if construction ceases on the pond, right?
Correct.
So why are we here?
Because, Mr. Beatty, they're going to try to claim that there is some other justification to be on site moving dirt. Without a pond permit, there is no authority to be out there. There's no building permit.
I disagree.
There's no septic permit.
I disagree.
That is incorrect.
Whether or not they move dirt is not appropriate for this forum. The BZA only has authority with regard to construction. If the county, and I get it, okay, but if the county commissioners don't like the dirt being moved, these folks don't have jurisdiction to stop that.
But there's no permit in place. There's no building permit, a septic permit. There is no.
There doesn't need to be.
You could. I get that, Shaw.
But everything.
But the
what I want to do
BZA
is put in the record what Mr. Volz wrote to Annie Poland in December of 2018. Everything he indicates on the record remains to be done on site is connected to the pond. Now they've changed their position. And I want to get that on the record. Let this board take a look at what he himself told the board was still going on site. Everything was connected to the pond. Now they've done a 180 and said, pond's done. Pond's done.
Mr. Beege, that has nothing to do with the reason why we're here today. We're here today for an appeal or clarification of a red tag.
Look, I understand the positions of both sides, and I'm not trying to be, what I don't want to do is go through a hearing about an issue over which the BZA does not have jurisdiction, okay? If you want to stop the dirt getting moved, I get that, but the BZA can't do anything about it if there's no construction or something being built.
But what I'm saying to you is that they themselves have indicated in writing everything going on site currently, any kind of dirt moving is connected to the pond. All I'm saying is get that in the record. I mean,
that's an inaccurate representation of what the indications that were made, and I'd ask that they be stricken from the record, please.
Well, I'll tell you what, we want to strike references to the record. We'll strike the representations that were made back in 2015 to this board and that have been continually misrepresented about activity at that site.
And
we
quite
need
frankly,
to
I'll
get...
bring this up. It's never been before this board, Mr. Beege.
Well,
you know that it's been before
the
the
Planning Commission.
Folks, gentlemen, please, I'm trying to, look, we have a simple issue. We have an expired pond permit.
Correct.
Okay? There was an appearance of construction of a pond, Annie, right?
Yes.
And a stop work order was issued.
Yes.
Okay. And now you stand before the board today saying, we're done with the pond.
Correct.
The basis of the stop work order was a permit to build a pond to begin with. Okay? But the board has no jurisdiction to stop anybody from moving dirt. None. There is no zoning code that says you can't move dirt on your property. I'm not saying it's good or bad, okay? I'm saying there is no statutory authority for the board to stop that.
I understand that, but the stop work order pertains to anything connected on site with that pond. That means, and let's go through the list. We'll go through the list because he needs to be clear, as his client does, exactly what that stop work order pertains to. He says he's uncertain. I'd like to simply go through the list of what he's indicated on his list still remaining to be done. December of 2018, he writes Ms. Poland and talks about things that need to be done on site.
Shaw, I understand what you're saying, but that's injunctive relief.
No.
Okay? That's injunctive relief.
The
okay?
stop work order pertains to all. I'd like to get into the record at least what our petition was to Ms. Poland, why she issued the stop work order. I mean, if we go from there, we go from there. But we need that in the record. He's already indicated he's going to court on this.
I know, but what means is he going to court, okay? Because I don't care what happened before this occurred, okay? Because that's the issue tonight. whether or not they're contesting it. If they're not contesting it, then it has to occur in a different forum.
I understand. I'm simply saying we reference what he has indicated. He still has to be done at the site as of December of 2018. Let the board inquire. Is in fact, he's saying as of December 2018, there's an area of 20 by 80 located in the southeast corner that will not retain and is losing water. Area needs to be relined with clay to allow for proper water retention. Access road going into the pond basin will need to be dug out and regraded. That's December of 18. The current area of the pond basin is closer to 3 acres than 4 acres. It's contrary to the well-versed opinion of
Shaw, with due respect, the only inquiry, I'm trying to get this to them, okay? The only inquiry I have is, are they contesting, this is on their petition to contest her stop work order, okay? If they're no longer contesting the stop work order and they're asserting that the work's done, there's no evidence to present.
if the work is done. We don't want to see them back out there next week attempting to do the things that are connected with the pond basin. That's the problem.
If they are, then this board has the authority to take conjunctive action if they're in violation of a stop work order, okay? But we're not here alleging violation of the stop work order. We're here because they appealed it.
Right.
If they're going to withdraw the appeal, I mean,
are you withdrawing it at this point?
Again, what am I withdrawing? The work is complete, and so now I'm being pigeonholed into take a position based upon a memorandum that was put together by the county attorney?
No.
I'm not doing that. I'm going back to my petition. My petition is for clarification and or appeal of the
you're not getting clarification because there's no statutory basis for it, okay?
So be it. I withdraw that portion of the...
So you're asking that the stop work order be removed on a pond that's complete. Is that what you're asking for?
Yes.
Okay. So the BZA can decide if it wants to hear that.
Could I ask a question, Mr. Ricci?
Sure.
When was the pond completed? On what date?
I'm sorry, Mr. Cunningham.
What
Excuse
date
me.
was the pond completed?
Substantial completion was prior to the expiration of the permit. And regardless of what anybody else is going to say, that's when the basin was complete. And again...
We're talking about a basin and a pond, and there's a big difference between a basin and a pond.
Correct. Absolutely.
here's the
but
question.
pursuant to the original permit, it was for the petition, which is the only permit for a pond construction that has ever been issued in the history of LaPorte County, was for construction of this pond. And the pond basin is complete.
I'm
How does
asking,
it get
when
filled?
was it complete?
July of 2017.
The pond basin was complete,
Correct.
not the pond.
Correct. Because the pond's not full of water.
Right. Not the removal of sand.
Wow.
That's separate and distinct from any of the again, this is about a pond permit.
Thank you, Mr. Beatty.
So the bottom line of the board is we have a stop work order, which apparently is being appealed, but on work that's complete, which doesn't make any sense to me. So I think the board has to decide if it wants to proceed forward and if it has jurisdiction over this matter, because again, the board's jurisdiction only extends to building permits, construction, and violation thereof.
It's not complete.
So I'm going to ask our attorney a question. You said we have the ability to approve, deny, or modify the red tag.
Yes.
I make a motion that we approve the issuance of the red tag.
Well, each side has, let's back up a minute. Each side has the opportunity to present evidence, okay? The burden of proof is on the building commissioner. And then DNM has an opportunity to respond. Okay, now unlike regular hearings, there's no remonstrances. It's only the two parties because you're working in a quasi-judicial capacity. If you're going to take substantive action in approving the permit, or excuse me, the stop work order, I would recommend you take evidence. Right now we're at the threshold where we're deciding if I think the board has to decide if it has jurisdiction to hear the matter. And if you want to proceed forward.
I misunderstood you then. I thought you just said that we had the ability to approve, deny, or modify.
Right, but each side has the opportunity to present evidence. That's at the end, approved, deny, or modify.
Right.
At the moment, you're making a choice as to whether you have jurisdiction over the matter because we're being told that the work is complete. Clear as mud? So if you want to move forward and hear evidence, you would make a motion to approve jurisdiction and move forward with the hearing, or the opposite, whatever you would choose.
I make a motion that we approve jurisdiction to hear evidence.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, so the burden of proof is on the building commissioner, so the building commissioner goes first.
Can I stay right now?
You and Sean.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
This is like a complete time.
I've got various exhibits that I'm going to be introducing, and so I'd like to pass out copies of both the memorandum and the exhibits if I could at this time, and then I'll place them in the record.
Do we have a mark?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's good. All right.
Hi.
Thank you.
Now the memorandum is Marco.
You know what, maybe make it A1 or 1A. The other ones aren't marked.
Yeah, for the record, why don't we make this memorandum A1?
Thank you.
This is the first document. A1.
These are to keep your right on these, it's easier. You'll never keep the notes straight. No. These that are worth 40. You said A1? Doug?
Okay, Ms. Poland, for the record, your name, please,
Anne Marie Pullen,
and what is your current position,
LaPorte County Building Commissioner,
and how long have you served in that position?
7 years.
Okay. Do you recall the issue of a pond permit coming before the Plan Commission at some point in 2015?
Yes, I do.
And you remember Mr. Miller appearing before the Plan Commission on August 25th, 2015 to discuss his plans for this particular site?
Yes.
And on that date, did he indicate, as part of his representations to the Plan Commission, it was his intentions to construct a home on this particular property?
Yes, he did.
Okay, and in fact, Exhibit 2 that we have provided the board has a reference to the minutes of the Plan Commission of August 25th, 2015. Is that correct?
Yes.
And specifically, did Mr. Miller indicate his intention to construct a home on this property?
Yes, he did.
And he also at that point was asking for a pond permit that he wanted for 4 acres and said the pond permit would be 1-year permit. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. I'd like to move admission of Exhibit 2 if I could. All right, thank you. As part of his application, in fact, he submitted a building permit application, did he not, to the county?
Yes.
And this particular permit, which is identified as Exhibit 1 in the packet that has been provided, references a 4-acre pond, does it not?
Yes.
And he also specifically indicates, and it's a 2-page exhibit, is it not?
Yes.
All right. As part of the this particular application, he indicated he was constructing a 4-acre pond. Is that right?
Yes.
Did he specifically ask for or indicate a construction cost for the pond?
Yes, at $10,000.
Okay. And he specifically dated it and signed it on July 16th of 2015. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, if you look at page 2 of the permit application, it appears to have been filled out by Mr. Miller. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. As I indicate, he apparently told the Plan Commission it was a 1-year permit. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that's what other members of the Plan Commission were told. Isn't that right?
Yes.
And in fact, at the August 25th, 2015 Plan Commission meeting, the minutes reflect that as far as the commission was concerned at that point, it was a one-year permit.
Yes,
Mr. Bahachik, who was a member of the Plan Commission, referenced on page 2 of Exhibit 3 that it was a 4-acre pond for a period of a year. Is that right?
yes,
And Mr. Minnick, who was sitting on the Plan Commission and represents both the Plan Commission and, of course, is on the BZA, said, yes, we make the approvals. The permit is for 1 year and for 4 acres. Is that correct?
yes. I think everybody that night said one year.
Okay.
That spoke.
Now, there later became a conflict over whether it was a year permit or a 2-year permit. Isn't that correct?
Right.
All right. And in fact, there was a question about whether, since it's an improvement location permit, are they good for 24 months?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And even though an occupancy permit may be for just a year, in fact, because it was constituted as an improvement location permit, the commission said, fine, it's a 2-year permit on the face of the permit. Is that right?
Yes.
And I know you had written Mr. Miller back in June of 2016 because at that point you thought that it was still just a 1-year permit. Is that
Yes,
right?
I did. Yes.
Okay. We're going to move admission of that, both 4, 3, and 2 into the record if we could. As I understand Exhibit 5, there was ultimately clarification that improvement location permits are valid for 24 months. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and so after the dispute over the length of time, it was made absolutely clear by the commission that that was the extent of the pond permit was for 24 months. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, and that's what Exhibit 5 depicts, is that portion of the joint zoning code at 23.04. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, even after that, there was dispute with Mr. Miller and with the highway department over truck weights, alleged truck weight issues and what have you. But at the
Mr.
end,
Beege, I'm going to object to relevance as to the discussion concerning the specific underlying permit. It has nothing to do with truck traffic.
it's foundational. It's foundational at
No,
this point. I'm
the
not
rules of
getting.
we can note an objection, but the rules of evidence don't apply.
As part of that discussion back and forth on truck weights, there was correspondence that came from Mr. Miller to Mike Yaculo, who was the county highway engineer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And as part of that correspondence, which is denominated Exhibit 6, did Mr. Miller make absolutely clear that his pond permit expired in July of 2017?
Yes.
And that's highlighted on his correspondence. It's denoted as Exhibit 6. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And that's, again, the correspondence, it's Exhibit 6, is October 10, 2016, and as part of his response, as he indicated, my pond permit does not expire until July of 2017.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, did there come a point toward the end of 2018 where there were some complaints by neighbors in terms of traffic going into and out of the site, where you then asked Mr. Miller and his attorney for an update on what the status was?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and specifically, did you email Ryan Miller, which is denoted as Exhibit 7 in the packet, specifically asking, can you please give me the status of the grading around the pond and the approximate length of time it will take until the pond is complete?
Yes.
Okay. You specifically asked for questions to be answered about how long this would take. Is
That's
that
right.
correct?
That's right.
Okay. Now, in fact, Mr. Volz, who represents Mr. Miller and D&M, responded to your email, did he not?
Yes, he did.
And it's Exhibit 8 in the packet, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, at no point in Exhibit 8, which was dated December 14th of 2018, does Mr. Volz say that the pond is complete, does he?
No.
In fact, he specifically says, my client, because you were pressing for time period, when's this going to be done?
Right.
Correct?
That's right.
And he says, I represent Ryan Miller. My client faces time, equipment, manpower restraints on a continuing basis with regards to the property. He's able to assign priority only as available. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So he wasn't giving you any kind of completion dates.
That's correct.
And did he specifically indicate in correspondence to you, to the county surveyor, who heads the Plan Commission, and to Mr. Beege, who was county attorney at the time, Plan Commission attorney, that he was providing following updates, various updates on how that pond was coming?
Yes.
Okay. And did he specifically reference the pond basin and Exhibit 8?
Yes, he did.
And he said, this is as of December 14, 2018. When he said the pond, when we heard tonight, when they're claiming the pond is done, December 14th of 2008, he's saying there's approximately an area in the southeast corner of the pond that will not retain water. It needs to be relined with clay. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And he said that specifically on December 14, 2018.
That's correct.
Talks about the access road coming into the pond basin will need to be dug out and recontoured to match with the existing pond basin. Is that right?
That's right.
He's not saying anything in here about the pond basin being done, is he?
No.
Now, he further says at item 3, the current area of the pond basin is closer to 3 acres than 4 acres, contrary to the well-versed opinion of the sand people, as they refer to them. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so again, he's talking about that there's still area to be dug in the pond basin. Is that right?
That's right.
Says the banks of the channel may need to be reshaped and contoured. That's the channel that leads down there. Is that correct?
Yes.
He says there's issues to address, changes to the access road, positive drainage, and effectuate rapid filling of the pond basin. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
It's listed right there in 5, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you have every indication as of December 14, 2018, there is still work
To be done.
to be done on this pond basin. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And now you then ask him, with all reasonableness, when are you going to build the home that you promised the Plan Commission in August of 2015 you were building? Isn't that right?
That's right.
And you asked him about that back in your letter in December. Is that right?
That's correct.
And didn't Mr. Miller come before this Plan Commission and say, I'm building my dream home out there? That's what this is all about, correct?
Yes. He did.
And has he done anything on that home of his?
No.
Is there a building permit that's been sought?
No.
Objection, relevance?
Yeah, it's relevant.
Mr. Beege, it is absolutely not relevant. There was no requirement for a building permit to be pulled for a
Mr.
house.
Volz, your objection is noted. Hey, by the way, if you make an objection, make sure you get near a microphone, okay, so the public can also hear it. Continue, Mr. Friedman,
Okay.
please.
I just want to be clear. So there's no building permit currently
No building
for a
permit.
home.
No.
Any septic permit?
No.
Any blueprints been submitted to your office?
No.
Okay. And so, but when Mr. Volz was asked, well, how they coming on the home? What does he tell the building commissioner of our county? With all due respect, I've advised my client he won't answer that question. Is that right?
Yes.
So here
He
you,
said-
go ahead. You were as building commissioner asking, when are you building that home, correct?
Yes.
And he's,
I was needing answers. I was wanting answers. And I wasn't getting them.
you got nothing, did you?
I got nothing.
Okay. Did there come a point, you recall January 2nd, 2019, the commissioners direct my office to get into this and to investigate the circumstances around it?
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, it came before the Board of Commissioners on February 6th of 2019. Is that correct?
Yes.
And in fact, we supplied a memoranda to the Board of Commissioners on February 6th of 2019 before they took action to recommend a red tag. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. I'd like to make sure that this particular memoranda is in the record as well. I believe it is. It's A1.
You're referring to A1, which is a memorandum to the Board of County Commissioners from Shaw Friedman dated January 14, 2019?
That's correct. Thank you.
We'll show it as a minute.
And in fact, after the Board of Commissioners recommended that you red tag the site, did I in fact supply a copy of the memoranda and the exhibits to you that same day?
Yes.
And did you proceed then to go ahead and issue a red tag that same day?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And it has to do with the pond permit, correct?
It all has to do with the pond permit.
Okay. Now, you've got some pictures apparently depicting work on site. Is that correct?
Yes, this is from today.
These are photos taken today. Who took the photos?
One of my inspectors.
Okay. And this was out on site?
Yes.
Does it look, as you observed, does it look like the pond is complete?
No, it does not.
Okay. Is there still dirt being moved around in the pond basin as we speak?
It appears so.
Okay. Now, just so that I'm clear, and the record is clear, as you get it, as you understand it, the pond permit expired in the summer of 2017. Is that
It did.
correct?
Yes, it did.
Okay. I'd like to, if we could, get some of the photos into evidence as well. Yeah, let's.
You want to call it a group exhibit? How many pages are there?
I think there's 9.
So in Shaw, I show 4, 3, 2,
9 pages.
1, and
done.
A1 in.
Okay.
You want to put the rest in?
If I could, let me
Yes.
move admission of the remaining exhibits. It should be exhibits 1 through 8.
1 through 8. So we'll call this one 9.
Thank you.
And there's 9 pages.
9, Exhibit 9, consisting of 9 pages.
That's correct. Thank you. We'll tender the witness for cross at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Volz?
Thank you, Mr. Beatty.
Hold on one second, please.
Well, we'll take a recess after evidence, and then you'll have a chance to review it. That way we can do the illusion.
If anybody's wondering, board members want to read this, and I said, well, let's get the evidence in. We can take a recess, and they can review all the documents at their leisure. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Beatty. Ms. Poland, would you acknowledge that you did, in fact, issue a pond permit or a site improvement permit for Mr. Miller and D&M Construction back in 2015?
Yes.
And will you also acknowledge that you were unaware of, in fact, the expiration of that permit?
We all thought at that time it was 1 year.
But in fact, the code provides for it being 2 years, correct?
It ended up so, yes.
It didn't end up so,
Yes,
ma'am.
yes.
It's in the JZO. So it was, in fact, a 2-year permit.
Yes.
And this is something that was missed by your office?
A misunderstanding.
A misunderstanding concerning a statute?
There's a 12-month and a 24-month, depending on what it is you're doing, what the project is.
Okay. But the determination was made by the Plan Commission that it was, in fact, a 24-month permit.
At that point, yes.
Okay. And then the permit expired in July of 2017, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you please identify anywhere in this exhibit that's referred to as number 8 from, I believe, A1? A18, meaning this email that was sent by my office to your office, where it indicates that the pond basin is not complete. Specifically.
Paragraph 1, the southeast corner of the pond basin that will not retain and is losing water.
So your definition of a pond basin being complete is whether or not it retains water?
What? Excuse me,
Here, I think this is
Annie,
more, okay.
what exhibit is that? So everybody knows
That's
where you're
exhibit 8.
Eight.
It's exhibit
Okay.
8 of A1, Mr. BG. I apologize. So your position is that a pond basin needs to retain water in order to be defined as such?
No, I believe that the whole construction of the pond comes under the pond permit. That's the sloping, the grading, the filling of the water, the whole thing. That's what the pond permit consists of, the complete entire deal.
Okay. Do you have the statutory support for that assertion?
Do you, for the basin?
Ma'am, I'm here to ask you questions, not for you to ask me questions.
Ask her for a legal conclusion. She's not a lawyer. She's given her best interpretation of what she understands.
Noted.
There's no definition of a pond in LaPorte County Joint Zoning Ordinance, correct?
Correct.
There's no definition of a pond basin in the LaPorte County Joint Zoning Ordinance, correct?
Correct.
So pursuant to the permit that was issued by the Building Commissioner's Office for a site improvement permit for my client's property that expired in 2017 on the permit's face, was there any action taken in August of 2017?
No.
September of 2017?
No.
October of 2017?
No.
November of 2017?
No.
December of 2017?
No.
So why, if this was such a priority for the county, was there no action taken for 5 months in 2017?
I will tell you why. You had told me at that time that the pond was complete. I believed you. There was times when there wasn't any action going on out there. There was no activity going on.
I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there.
You've asked the question.
Okay, so I believe that. There had been no activity. I hadn't heard anything from any of the neighbors that there was trucks going in and out.
Okay, I need to
So
stop for
believe
clarification
that
of
it-
this answer.
Let her
I need to
finish,
stop for
let her
clar-
finish your answer, and then you can clarify.
So
Make a
I
note.
believed that it was finished.
Could you please describe what activity you would consider as being associated with a pond basin?
The pond basin,
That's what I'm asking you.
ask me the question again.
Could you please provide an explanation as to the activity that you would associate with a pond basin?
Vague.
I don't understand the question either.
What do trucks have to do with a pond basin?
The trucks were going in and out with fill. The trucks were going in and out with fill, and I'm not going to, Andrew, I told you this once. The whole thing is the pond. You keep referring to the basin. I'm talking about the whole complete pond. The sides, the bottom, the sloping, the grading. The whole thing is the pond permit
And I agree with you. How big is the pond permit for?
for 4 acres.
How big is the pond right now?
I'm not really sure if it's up to 4, 3.5, 4. It's finished.
Move to strike this from the gallery.
According to you.
I have to instruct the people in the gallery, you can't, okay? Because the BZA will kick you out. This is not like a regular meeting where you can remonstrate, okay? Thank you.
So the pond basin is actually complete within the terms of the permit, correct?
In your opinion, not mine.
Have you surveyed the site?
I personally haven't, but other people have.
Okay. And you're aware that this property encompasses 47.5 acres, correct?
I thought it was 52.
Well, actually, if you check the property records, you would understand that a 5-acre parcel was portioned off.
That's correct, as of last June.
Correct. Do you need a pond permit to move dirt?
No,
Do you need a pond permit to move sand?
no.
Do you need a pond permit to knock down trees?
A pond permit, no.
Do you need a pond permit to fill a truck with dirt?
Not a pond permit, no.
What permit do you need?
What are we getting at here?
I'm asking what permit you believe from, as a building commissioner of LaPorte.
I'm not sure if the county highway has a permit for that or not. It's
Okay.
something that you could ask them.
All right. So I'm going to go back to this then. So in all of 2017, starting from July to December, there was no issue with the county or with your office concerning this property. And in fact, in all of 2018, there was no issue concerning this property, correct?
Define issue.
That you were having issues with the fact that the pond permit project, pond basin project, may have not been completed.
Do you have any other questions?
That was the question. There were no issues with the county as related to the property in the entirety of 2018, correct?
Objection, mistake. She's not said that. You're asking, were there complaints to the office?
I'll ask my own questions, thank you.
The evidence already submitted in Exhibit 8.
Exhibit 8 in December.
Okay, so the only complaint then that was concerning Mr. Miller and D&M's property occurred in December 2018, correct?
That's when it was, yes.
Was there an election in November of 2018?
Objection, relevant.
It's completely relevant, Mr. Beege.
That's got nothing to do with the pond permit, and I'm not
So,
gonna-
so you're going to state that there was no issue from the county in all of 2017 and moving all into 2018.
I'm not going to say that, Andrew. I'm not going to say that. There were issues, and it was a confusing mess.
It still is a confusing
It's not a
mess.
mess
Would you
anymore.
agree?
No, it's not confusing anymore.
It's not. So
No.
what's changed?
What's changed is the pond permit expired in July of 17,
Correct.
and there's still work being done. The pond is not done. The pond is not complete,
What do
and
you
the pond permit is expired.
What do you base that on? The simple presence of excavators on a property?
Well, if you can look at these pictures and tell me you think the pond is complete, then
I have no basis to understand where
See
those
an
pictures were
ophthalmologist.
taken on a 47-acre property. Where are these pictures taken? Is this in the pond basin? Is it on the banks? Is it up the hill?
I told you once before,
One
it's the whole
question at a
thing.
time, and let's take it down a
It's
notch.
the whole thing.
Is there more than one pond?
Let them decide. That's what they're here for.
Is there any requirement under the LaPorte County Joint Zoning Ordinance as of 2015 for the construction of a home as related to a pond permit?
It is as of 2015,
As of 2015.
not in 2015. However, you and Ryan did say that he was going to build a home. That was, that was said.
is
But
there-
no, it's not a prerequisite. It
So
wasn't.
so there is no prerequisite under the Joint Zoning Ordinance,
Not at that time.
not at that time. Is there any prerequisite for someone who states that they are going to build a home that they indeed follow through with that?
I think when you have something this controversial, you should stick to your word.
How is what someone does with their own property controversial?
He brought it up. He's the one that said he was going to have his dream home there. That's not something anybody else brought up.
Did he tell you when he was going to construct the dream home?
He said along with the pond. That was going to be his
So
home site.
if the pond basin is complete, wouldn't it be reasonable to conclude that a dream home could be following?
You would have thought by now. And you keep going back to the pond basin, and I don't agree with you. So
How many pond permits were issued in LaPorte County last year?
maybe 3.
How many pond permits that were issued are complete?
All of them.
You've examined them?
Yes.
They meet the statutory definition of a pond?
Yes.
Is there any requirement under the joint zoning ordinance that my client provide you with a timeline for when he would build his house?
I think that he should have kept his word by going through with that. That's what he said he was going to do.
But that's not a
And once
legal,
again, he brought that up. That was what he had said.
that's not a legal requirement, correct?
Correct.
I've got nothing further, Mr. Beege.
The commission members have questions of, the board members have questions of the building commissioner?
How many ponds are on the property?
On this property, 1.
Thank you.
Just 2 brief questions. In terms of complaints, I think the board.
I'm
members-
sorry. Could we get you to come up to the podium, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
One, before I get started, one correction for the record. I believe Mr. Volz referred to Exhibit A under 1A, and I think those are totally separate. I think the exhibits are 1 through 8, and then 1A was added at the last minute for the record. Does that make sense, Andrew?
No, actually, I'm sorry.
You said Exhibit 8 under 1A, and I think they're totally separate
And I
exhibits.
apologize. I believe that Exhibit A1, meaning the memorandum that was prepared by Mr. Friedman, contains what is referred to in there as Exhibit 8 of that original submission. So I apologize if
Okay.
that was unclear.
A1 was just a memorandum.
Right.
But the original memorandum had 8 exhibits attached to it, so my apologies.
Yeah, for
Okay.
tonight, you separated them
Okay.
out.
All right.
The memo was just a-
Okay.
Thank you.
Just two brief items in redirect. And I think you made this clear. You indicate you were getting complaints in 2018, and that generated further investigation on your part. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. Secondly, there was a question about, does the joint zoning ordinance now require that if you're going to have a pond permit, it's got to be associated with the home, and the home has to be constructed simultaneous or contemporaneously? Is that correct?
It is now, yes.
Okay. Nothing further. Thank you.
Building commissioner have anything further on that? You got a redirect?
I've got a brief redirect, Mr. Beasley. Recross, excuse me. Are you aware of the provision of Indiana Code 3674-1109?
Beyond the scope of redirect.
But of course I am.
Mr. Beasley is not, because she just testified as to the accessory indication of a pond now with the residence. And if you look at 3674-1109, if a pond permit would be applied for by Mr. Miller, it is a
You're outside the scope. He asked her what the current status of the code is now, and that's what she said. She didn't say whether or not applied to Mr. Miller or how it might. That's all she said was what the code is now.
Then I'm just asking for notice that this statute exists. Thank you.
Do you have any other evidence, Madam Building Commissioner?
We have nothing further.
Yes.
I think we've got the photos.
We haven't seen those.
Was this Exhibit 9, right?
Thank you.
And the building commissioner rests at this time.
Thank you. Does D&M have any testimony or evidence it wishes to present?
We do, Your Honor.
Let me. I get it. Oh, it's marked.
I'm sorry, Mr. Beasley, do you have exhibit markers or anything like that, or do you want me to handwrite
No,
them?
we're writing on them.
Okay, all right,
If you got a bunch of pictures, so I'd rather we enter them as a group like
It's a
we
group,
did.
it is a group.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. No, don't worry about it, they'll do it. Mr. Miller, good evening. Please state your first name, spelling your last name for the record.
Ryan Miller, M-I-L-L-E-R.
Mr. Miller, are you serving in a representative capacity for the Indiana Corporation D&M Excavating?
Yes, I am president.
Okay, and you've been president of that corporation for how long?
2 years.
Okay. You know, we're here tonight pursuant to the petition for an appeal and/or clarification of the red tag that was issued on the property owned by D&M, correct?
Correct.
Okay, what are your concerns with this?
The concerns this evening?
The concerns specifically with this evidentiary hearing that we've entered into.
Primary would be the differences in the gray area, in my opinion, of what is considered a pond and what is not considered a pond. Judging by what Ms. Poland has said, everything on my 47.5 acre site is considered part of the pond. And that's troubling that she feels that way. It's also troubling that, yes, I made the statement to the Plan Commission that I was going to build a house. I didn't say when, and I've never said that I would not. At any point in time have I ever said that I would not. And it's troubling that the government feels they can tell me when I need to build a house.
Mr. Miller, we've prepared some exhibits for this evening. These are true and accurate photos that were taken by you, correct?
This first one is yes.
Okay. The second item in the group exhibit,
Aerial photo taken off a beacon.
okay, and this is a aerial photograph that concerns your property, or excuse me, D&M's property.
Correct.
The
Taking out the beacon one.
Data photography.
approximately when did you pull this off a
It's the
beacon?
most recent imagery Beacon offers. I don't know the date, but
Would you have pulled it off of Beacon within the last 3 months?
I pulled it off a Beacon the night before the Plan Commission meeting 3 weeks ago.
The third photograph,
Has a date. It's off a Beacon aerial view, and it is dated 3/22/18.
and when you look at this photograph, what do you see?
I see a pond basin complete.
Is there in fact water in that pond basin?
There is.
Okay. And if you had to, based upon your opinion concerning the property, which you have manifest knowledge of, how big is that pond basin?
part holding water or the basin itself?
The part holding water at this point.
The part holding water is approximately 2.25 acres.
And how big is the basin?
3. Just, I believe, per the survey done that I paid for, the pond, which is the high water mark of what will hold water, the pond basin, is 3. I don't want to state exactly, but I want to say it was 3.27.
And that basin was complete when?
July. I'd have to look at the survey date. I want to say it was the first week of July is when the survey took place. The work was completed prior to the survey taking place.
What year?
17.
Were you ever contacted by the county building commissioner or any other county official concerning the concerning the pond permit that was issued that expired in July of 2017?
I was not.
You weren't contacted in August of 2017
By
by the county?
what part of the county?
By the county questioning the fact that your permit was expired.
No, I was not.
You weren't contacted in September of 2017?
I was not.
October of 2017?
By the Plan Commission?
By anyone affiliated with the county concerning the existence and or expiration of the red tag, of the pond permit.
No, sir, I was not.
Photograph number 4, what does that dictate, or what does that indicate?
That would be an east view, I'm going to say, or a view from the aerial west, taken off a beacon dated 3/20/2018.
And this again is an accurate representation of the property owned by D&M Excavating?
It is.
And this is an accurate representation of the condition of the pond basin as of 3/20/2018?
It is.
Okay. Move to submit this.
Well, this is called petitioner 1.
Yes. Mr. Beege, I'm sorry, P1?
P1 with 1, 2, 3, 4 subparts.
Let's go back to the first photograph from P1. When was that taken?
I don't have my phone on me. Early February 18.
Was that after the issuance of the red tag by the building commissioner?
Just prior, I believe, by about a week.
Did you believe that, in fact, the property was going to be red tagged?
Yes.
What was your reason for believing that?
The commissioners meeting of January 2nd or 3rd, 2019.
There were no commissioners meetings that took place in 2018 that made you concerned with the disposition of your property?
No, sir.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Did I clarify what I consider a gray area here with what's a pond and what's not?
Please clarify that.
There is a safety shelf around the top of a pond. It's where the clay stops and the sand starts. It's where when the water hits that level, the pond will no longer fill up. It will drain back into the sand. That elevation is shot with a laser. Construction equipment set up. This is shot all the way around, so it's the same elevation. So once the pond hits a certain level, it starts to spill over and back into the sand. Everything from that elevation around has been staked by a surveyor and graded to that. Everything from that point inside is a pond. Everything outside that is my property.
Is there any permit that you're aware of that is issued by the building commissioner's office that would allow you to move dirt?
No.
Is there any permit that is issued by the building commissioner's office that has anything to do with heavy equipment on your property?
No.
Is there any permit that is issued by the building commissioner's office that has anything to do with truck traffic in and about your property?
No.
I have nothing further, Mr. Beege.
I do have a question before Andrew steps down. Is that?
Let's let Shaw do cross first.
Okay.
Go for them.
Okay, Mr. Miller, you remember appearing before the Plan Commission August 25th, 2015 to discuss your plans for the site.
Good evening, Mr. Friedman. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
What was the date?
August 25th, 2015. You remember being here for that?
I do, for the Plan Commission.
And you remember why you had to come in front of the Plan Commission? It's a residentially zoned area, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And there are certain restrictions in residential areas about what can be done and what can't be done. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And in fact, you made various representations about intentions to construct a home on this property 3.5 years ago. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Nothing's been done so far on the home. Is that correct?
That's correct.
No blueprints, no building permits, nothing. Is that correct?
That's incorrect.
What have you done in terms of submitting anything to the building commissioner?
I haven't submitted anything to the building commissioner, but that's not what you had asked.
Okay.
I have had soil borings taken for a septic design and a septic design done.
Okay.
But it hasn't been submitted because they're only good for a certain period of time.
Okay. So, but no steps have been taken toward building that home in terms of a permit application being submitted to the county. Is that correct?
No, it's incorrect. I have had soil borings done for a septic, but I haven't submitted them because that has to be done within so many months prior to the septic being installed, which would go through the health department, not the building commissioner.
Have you submitted an application to the health department?
No, because they have an expiration date, sir.
Okay. So there's no septic permit on file, correct?
It's correct. A pond doesn't need a septic.
No
sir.
building permit on file either. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, do you remember being in front of the Plan Commission specifically saying to the Plan Commission that you expected the pond permit, that you were only asking for a year? Remember that?
We were under the belief that the pond permit was a year when I filled the paperwork out with Mrs. Pavey. I don't want to try to be proper. I filled that out with you, correct, in the office?
I didn't do that. I think maybe you filled it out with me. I believe Janet was the one that issued the permits.
And I was told by the employee of the building commissioner's office they believed it was a 1 year.
Okay. And then you said that at the Plan Commission meeting on August 25th, correct? Okay. You also listed construction cost at $10,000 for your pond. Is that correct?
Correct.
What's it actually worked out to? Is it approximately that, you think?
Don't know.
You have no idea.
Don't have an answer.
You know you've got to list some rough guesstimate of what the construction will run. You have no idea what it's run.
I couldn't tell you at this point.
Okay. So you think the $10,000 is accurate?
With the attorney's fees for dealing with this, no, I would say it's probably not.
Probably considerably more, huh?
Probably.
Now, there came a point a year later where you and your attorney contended it was 2 years. The Plan Commission said, fine, it's a 2-year permit. It's a 24-month. Is that correct?
I don't believe so.
You don't think it was a 24-month improvement location permit?
I do believe it's a 24-month improvement. I don't believe that me and my attorney came to that conclusion. I believe the county actually informed us of that. But.
Okay. You remember sending an email to Mr. Yakulo. It's been marked as Exhibit 6, fully recognizing that your pond permit expires in July of 2017.
I don't recall that, but you have it in front of you. I'm certain I did.
Okay. So that would square with your knowledge that even as of that time, October of 2016, you said very clearly to the county, my pond permit does not expire until July of 2017. Is that correct?
That appears correct.
Okay. And you understand that that means anything associated with the pond basin, moving, any excavation stops at that point.
I just answered that earlier. It goes to the same thing as what I've explained. Your definition and my definition as a president of a construction company are obviously different when it comes to what is considered the pond basin and what is not.
Well, but in fact, when your attorney wrote the county in December of 2018, he wasn't distinguishing with that, was he? Was he saying that construction was done on the pond?
And he's correct. Construction was done on the pond.
Sir, I'm asking you about the letter of December of 2018.
Correct.
It's Exhibit 8. Did he say anywhere in here that construction is done on the pond? Find that for me, please.
Are the words "the construction is done on the pond" in this email?
Right.
No.
Nothing.
No.
All right. In fact, he specifically says there's an area, 20 foot by 80 foot, located on the southeast corner of the basin that will not retain water, correct?
Correct.
And it needs to be relined with clay to allow for proper water retention.
Correct.
Has that been done?
Yes, it has.
When was that done?
January, second week of January.
Okay. Access road recontoured to meet with the existing pond basin. Has that been done?
It's outside of the pond basin.
Oh, wait. Well, now we're getting into what's in the pond basin and what's not. Where is it
Well,
defined? Pardon?
That's exactly what I stated
Is
earlier.
it connected to the pond in terms of the basin? Anything that leads to that, the access road leads to the pond, does it not?
No,
Oh, so it's not connected with the pond.
it's on the same property.
The access road coming into the pond basin on the southeast corner will need to be dug out. You see that?
It's
Okay.
outside of the pond basin, though.
Does it say anything about that in Exhibit 8?
But that was the question you just asked me.
Okay. Sir, does it say anything in here that the access road coming into the pond basin will need to be dug out, that it's not in the pond basin?
No, you just read what it says.
You bet. And it's right there, isn't it? How about number 3? The current area of the pond basin is closer to 3 acres than 4 acres.
That's huge.
So what does that mean? There's still work to be done? Is it 4 acres? Are you at the 4 acres that you saw it or not?
I told you it was surveyed by a professional surveyor at 3.27 acres, I believe it was.
Okay. In terms of number 5, there are grading issues to address, as well as changes to the access road. Filling of the pond basin by means other than direct precipitation. You see that right there?
Which number, sir?
Number 5, December of 2018.
Okay,
You see that?
I do.
And can you understand why the building commissioner would understand from Exhibit 8 why she fully believed there was continuing work on the pond?
Objection.
No, I would not.
Objection.
Okay.
Don't answer that question. You cannot speak to what the building commissioner would or would not understand.
You cannot instruct a witness not to answer. The rules of evidence do not apply. Please answer the question. Your objection is noted.
Can you understand how the
Yes,
building
I will.
commissioner absolutely would find from Exhibit 8 that there is still work continuing on the pond?
Same answer I gave you earlier. This is not work inside the pond. So no, I do not see where the building commissioner would see off of number 5 where that is work inside the pond. Because my opinion is work above the water line is outside of the pond.
Okay.
Otherwise, my entire parcel of property is considered a pond.
Would you agree with me there are numerous references in Exhibit 8 to the pond basin and things that exist with regard to the pond basin?
I would not.
All right, but the letter speaks for itself, and that's fine. Final question to you. Can you understand the need of the building commissioner to find out when you were building the home that you'd promised, that dream home that you promised the plan commission? They asked about it, didn't they?
No, I clearly do not understand the reason that the building commissioner needs a date. Did Ms. Poland ask you when you were going to build your home?
This
Prior
is
to you building it.
This is a residentially zoned area. You understand why the pond was requested in connection with a home, correct?
I understand that.
Okay.
But that doesn't limit when I can build that home.
So it gives her no right to ask about when you're going to build it. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
In reference to the construction I'm doing on my property to shape land around, no, it doesn't. It does not.
When you came to the Plan Commission, August of 2015, it was in connection with the building of the home. That's how you premise this within a residentially zoned area.
That is
correct?
incorrect,
Objection,
sir.
mischaracterization
That
of
is
this
incorrect.
testimony.
Record will reflect what it was in terms of the petition at that time and the statements that were made. No further questions.
Redirect? No, wait. Do commission members have questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
as a matter of fact, I do. I want to make sure I'm clear, Mr. Miller, on, you referred to number 5, but if I go to number 2 on Exhibit 8,
Thank you.
I'll wait till he gets it. Ms. Friedman, you have Exhibit 8 you can hand him.
Thank you, sir.
Number 2, the access road also coming into the pond on the southeast corner will need to be dug out and regraded as well as recontoured to match with the existing pond basin. So that means you're going to take some more dirt out so the water runs into the pond, correct?
Correct.
Number 5, overall there are grading issues to address as well as changes to the access road and the shaping thereof. The shaping and access road changes need to occur to allow for positive drainage to occur and effectuate rapid filling of the pond basin by means other than direct precipitation. That means you're going to take some sand or dirt out so the water runs downhill into the pond, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
As a follow-up to Mr. Cunningham's well-asked questions. There is an MS4 permit that is on this property, correct?
It's an IDEM permit, but it's in reference to MS4 procedures.
Okay, so it's an IDEM permit that is issued to your property for a period of how long?
5-year permit.
And what does, in fact, that cover?
It covers erosion control measures and site disturbance.
It has nothing to do with your pond permit, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, it is existing currently and will exist until 2020, correct?
I believe July 8th of 2020.
Have you confirmed that with the MS4 coordinator?
No, I have a copy of the permit.
Okay. Things such as grading and shaping would be covered under that MS4 permit, correct?
Correct.
And it would have nothing to do with, in fact, the pond permit, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, were you ever asked by the building commissioner if the pond basin was complete?
No, I was not. Until December 13th of 18, in an email to me that I directed to you that you redirected back to her. That was the first time I was asked if the pond was complete.
Nothing further.
I have a question.
We have a question
for Ryan. The pond was completed, as I understand, in July of 17. But I don't see where there was any grass seeded around the pond or, I mean, that's the last thing you do is when you complete the pond, you want to stop any erosion going into the pond. And in all the photos I see, doesn't look like it was ever addressed.
I gotta get my bearings straight here. Excuse me, north side was seeded. We had an extreme problem with geese eating all my seed, not getting it to grow much. We reseeded it, blanketed a small area, and it grew. It's still decent at this point. The west side is covered in weeds. The east side is being shaped because that's where it needs to be cut down, as per Mr. Cunningham's question. The shaped sort of the channel that is there from prior to me buying the property can get to the pond. And the south side, I still have to shape, so it has not been seeded. It's been regraded multiple times to stop erosion, but it is not seeded.
And if I may just clarify that question, Mr. Minnick, you're talking about the banks, correct?
Yeah.
Not the basin, clearly.
Right, but when I think of
above
a pond,
the water line.
Above the water
line,
line. I'm sorry.
A pond is a complete area. I mean,
Yes.
the banks of the pond need to be seeded, or there'll be erosion. You'll have to do further work on your pond.
Absolutely.
Correct. Above the high water line is where we're doing the seeding. I'm not seeding anything below that. It's a very lean clay that is not washing.
Mm-hmm.
So none of that has been seeded, nor do I plan to seed any of that because it will be underwater.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions of the board? Shao?
You're not indicating that the MS4 permit allows this continuing activities on the pond, are you?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Well, you applied for an MS4 permit, but it was for in fact, installation of certain culverts to allow proper stormwater drainage. You remember doing that?
It's a disturbance permit
Right.
through the state of Indiana
Right.
that allows disturbance for a certain amount of set acres per a drawing that was attached to it. I don't know if you have the drawing.
Right. And in fact, part of what you indicated, you were going to place a culvert, 24-inch culvert and a 12-inch culvert, ductile iron for longevity so the road construction doesn't disrupt natural water flow. That was done, correct?
Correct.
There's nothing in here about anything else connected with drainage or on-site or anything else, is there?
Again, you don't have the drawing attached, and it tells you how many acres and shows the outline of any area that's allowed to have disturbance. The only thing it references in there is erosion control concerns, which would be the culverts being protected.
Well,
That's what the MS4 permit is for, sir.
MS4 strictly dealt with the culvert and the installation of the culverts, and that's already occurred, has it not?
Again, the permit doesn't cover all the things that take place under them. None of the permits from MS4 do.
Okay. But you're not indicating to this board that the continued work on the pond, whether it is drainage, the road leading up to it, is somehow justified under the MS4, correct?
I'm not going to answer that because you're trying to sway me into saying that everything outside of the high water mark is work on the pond, such as a road, and that is not the case.
Despite Exhibit 8, which talks about the items that lead to the pond, correct?
I don't have Exhibit 8 in front of me anymore.
Well, the document speaks for itself. I'm not going to belabor this. Exhibit 8 indicates a variety of things connected with the pond basin, does it not?
Connected with the property.
Okay, nothing further.
Any further questions from the board? Mr. Foltz, do you have anything further?
Only to note that Exhibit 8 would be quote-unquote incomplete because it did not contain the previous email that was sent by the building commissioner with specific questions. So when Mr. Friedman is characterizing a response to certain questions, if those questions were never asked, the response could never be made. Thank you.
Turn it back over to the president.
Question, does Exhibit 7, isn't that the previous email? You just said that Exhibit 8 is a moot point because Exhibit 7's not in there? I think defendant's Exhibit 7 is the email from Anne-Marie Poland dated December 5th of 2018 asking the questions.
That is correct. We want the record to reflect the response was in, and I believe you have it as part of your packet. Exhibit 7 was the question asked by Ms. Poland.
Yeah. All right, I want to make sure that the board understands the standard of review, okay? You're reviewing this and you're determining if the building commissioner's decision was arbitrary, capricious, or illegal. That's what you're deciding, okay? And your decision, now this comes in now, Earl, can be to either affirm, reverse, or modify the order of the building commissioner.
Are we ready? Make a motion that we confirm the red tag activity of the building commissioner.
So your motion is to affirm the building commissioner's
Correct.
decision, okay?
Mr. Beege, if I may ask for some clarification about Mr. Cunningham's motion, it would be what in fact is this motion specifically stating? To affirm what?
I think we're in the middle of a vote,
Yeah, you're out of order, please.
so
Excuse
you're
me.
going to have to, thank you. So I have a motion right now to affirm or uphold the decision of the building commissioner to red tag. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
I have a motion and a second. If you'd like to ask your question.
Thank you. What exactly is the motion and the second that is in front of this board at
The
this point?
motion is to affirm or uphold the red tag decision made by the building commissioner.
As concerning the pond permit that expired in...
We're not going to argue.
I'm not arguing.
Your question's been answered. Please have a seat.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor of affirming and upholding the decision of the building commissioner, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So we have made a decision to affirm and uphold the decision of the plan commission, the building commissioner rather,
Thank you.
for the red tag. I'm gonna do that. Okay, And if,
We haven't had
we're
a
not
motion to
taking any
adjourn.
comments at this time, so if you
We haven't
guys,
adjourned yet. We haven't
we're
adjourned
not
yet.
done, we're not done with our meeting, so if you want to speak in the hallway, you're free to do that, but we have,
Yeah.
We can have a
do we
motion
have
to
any,
adjourn.
do we have any new business in front of the board, either from Attorney BG or Anne Marie?
No, ma'am.
No.
Hearing none, can I have a motion
Motion to
adjourn?
adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.